Welcome back to How to Manage Tech with me, Dean Tuvey. This is second lesson in a series on Agile project management. In the first episode, I talked to you about the iron triangle to give you a taste of the potential success you can enjoy with Agile project management as opposed to traditional ways of doing things. In this episode, I want to talk to you about how we do things differently in Agile to traditional, and I want to talk about where the term waterfall came from. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back. All right, let's go and then have a look. You'll remember in the last episode, I was talking to you about this iron triangle. What I want to do now is I want to start with something fresh and I want to have a look at the difference between traditional and Agile. This came out of the 70s, in fact, with a guy called Winston Royce, who had worked on hardware at IBM and large installations. And what had happened is they developed this methodology, right? A series of steps, and each phase or each step was completed before you went on to the next one. And Winston Royce was quite critical of this. He described it as a waterfall, as in water cascading from stage to stage, and criticised it for delivering substandard results. And he said the key thing is we're missing iterations, we're missing the ability to learn and feedback loops in there, classic engineering using a feedback loop. What tends to happen in a traditional waterfall project is something like this. We have a series of stages, and this is what I'll call traditional. Just a quick note, waterfall was considered a derogatory term by Winston Royce. So everyone keeps using the term waterfall, but I like to use the word traditional. There's some value in traditional. I don't want to dismiss it out of hand, but classically what happens is we have a series of phases that we go through. So let's say we have an initial feasibility, is this worth doing? Then we do some, say, requirement gathering or some sort of analysis, if you like. And then we do a design piece, and we develop our solution, and that might be code, it might be hardware, it might be a civil piece, right? Then we test our solution, and then we implement it. Classic, traditional way of doing things. And this works very well if you've done something many times before and there's a relatively low level of risk. Now, in the case of hardware, for example, and possibly some kind of installation, the boxes are made, the way they go together is well known. And this is never the case with software. This traditional approach tends to fall down because it relies essentially on requirements standing still for the bulk of the project and lots of upfront planning. And we'll talk about upfront planning in just a moment. But what I want to show you with the Agile method is that you still have to do some design before you can do some coding. You still have to code something before you can test it. Certainly we can fiddle with that concept, but there's some sort of plan, build, run sequences you have to go to. And what we're going to do though is build our solution in stages, doing repetitive cycles of these, or iterations if you like. Let me show you. In our Agile method, what we're going to do is we're going to have this feasibility stage to work out whether this is a good project or not. And then we're going to have a first run of analysis, gathering all the requirements. And again, this can be iterative. Then there's design, and that can include UX design and specifications and so on. There's development, there's test, and then there's implement. And the difference here is that when we implement, well, this is not unlike the traditional, but the whole idea is we actually go live with the result. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because even though we went live over here with our traditional, a lot of people think that because of these iterations, we're just going to go into test, for example, and that's good enough. But unless we actually put our solution working into the hands of our customers and users, we're not going to learn enough. And we call this a minimum viable product, something just working, often a proof of concept. And then what we can do is we can now have another iteration and another iteration going through these steps. Each time the solution is being built out. Now, obviously this lends itself very well to software, mobile, webware. Deployment of new versions is very straightforward. But think about a piece of hardware as well. Think about if you were developing a new car or a new product or a new method of mining or something. It's not such a bad idea to develop a first version cut. So I'm a bit of a Tesla fan and the Boring Company at the moment. They're on their third iteration of a mining machine. And each one was able to dig a tunnel, but they're trying to get faster and better with each iteration. But they're actually using the thing to dig a real tunnel as they go. Let's add a few more iterations into this. Another round of analysis follows, and what happens is we're going to unpack the requirements in a just-in-time fashion as we get there, similarly with the develop, and we'll look at how we can integrate tests into all of this and go through an implementation. And now we have what we call another increment we go live with. We do more learning, and then we might go through another round or another iteration if you like. And each iteration is an opportunity to learn and improve on what we've already built, to reassess the value and keep learning all the way through. And this is a recipe for much happier customers. Remember I spoke in the last lesson about using a prioritization schema called MOSCO. Must have, should have, could have, and won't have. What you can do then, for example, let's say you broke your project down into these 3 large deliveries and increments, and they don't have to be the same size. But let's say that first one was all the core must-haves that need to be in the project as a minimum viable product to put into the hands of users, prove that we've got something that works. The second increment then delivers on more must-haves, possibly a few bug fixes for the first round, now a round of should-haves. Then our last increment is should-haves and a few could-haves that we're still squeezing in. Some have had to be dropped because we're chasing a deadline here. This is how these 3 increments can serve us. Alrighty. So that's the difference between traditional and agile. I'm going to have another round showing you how we tackle the right level of design coming up in just a moment. I'm Dean Tuvey. This is How to Manage Tech. See you soon. If you like this video, then hit the like button and subscribe. Remember to hit the bell notification so you'll be updated when I release a new lesson. And feel free to share this lesson with anyone you think who might get value out of it. I've added some cards to the next lessons you might want to watch after this one. Feel free to ask me any questions or leave a comment below, along with any ideas you have for future videos. Thanks very much for watching. I look forward to chatting to you more soon.